election. And what has become a key election issue is the economy. Each presidential aspirant really coming up with their own spin on what they feel needs to be done to take Kenya's economy from where we are right now to where we need to be or where Kenyans want it to be. However, I'd be keen to hear from each of you, not as politicians, because I know you are not, but as economic minds, on what you'd like to hear from those who will look to move the country forward once President Uhuru Kenyatta retires. And I just want to remind you a bit of what some of those promises are by looking at some of the following stories. And actually, let's start with one that was from yesterday, where Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka yesterday promised a youthful government with a dedicated ministry for youth if the One Kenya Alliance government wins next year's general elections. Now, Kalonzo, who hosted student leaders from universities across the country, maintained that an Oka government will cut tax by 50% and promote a 24-hour economy that will favor unemployed youth. The Oka principal said his government will prioritize agriculture.
So I want us, comrades, to look at that we are in a situation as Kenya, we are in a financial crisis, we're in an economic crisis. We need someone who can take us from this position to the position where we can prosper.
Guys, the future, grab hold of it. You know, it is fashionable to work everywhere. A poll was conducted which indicated that over 38% of young Kenyans want to go and work abroad. And mainly they asked where? They want to work in the United States of America. They think there's greater freedom out there. We want to bring greater freedom. Constitution 2010 gives Kenyans freedom of expression, freedom of worship, freedom not to sleep hungry, freedom to educate your kid, and freedom to enjoy the God-given rights. I want to refer you to that document that we...
Okay, that's what Kalonzo Musyoka had to say. And of course, as our presidential aspirants continue moving around the country, each of them making different promises in regards to the economy, I have some business minds here that will help us unpack what they hope and wish presidential aspirants were talking about. But let's listen to what Deputy President William Ruto had to say yesterday. He promised to revamp the fishing and agricultural sectors. Now, this is specifically in the Western region, integrating the sector's revival blueprint into his larger bottom-up agenda. Ruto, who had kick-started his charm offensive of the Nyanza region, told all presidential aspirants to mainstream the economic agenda for the benefit of the common man. Let's listen to what happened yesterday.
The arrival at the lakeside city of Kisumu, marking the first of Deputy President William Ruto's 3-day tour of the Nyanza region. His agenda, striking the hearts of residents where it hurts most. The revival of the sugar and rice subsectors taking center stage, with the various leaders calling on the DP to incorporate agricultural growth into his bottom-up blueprint to spur economic growth in the region.
If you sit on that chair, you consider us as the farmers of the rice, so we can get the right market to the rice. We can get the factory that we can mill the rice and we can pack it.
Too many people are working too hard and earning very little. This region can actually be the region that can grow for us what we can use to close the gap of imports of close to 180 billion Kenyan shillings.
In popularizing his bottom-up economic model, the DP also took note of the existing efforts by various leaders to enhance the growth of the micro-enterprises, bashing the recent demolitions witnessed in Kisumu that left thousands of traders displaced. The DP calling on the electorate to scrutinize the manifesto of all presidential contenders and shun voting along ethnic lines.
Are we together? You vote for your interests. And that's why I am saying, tuwache siasa hii ya kelele mingi. Mtu anakuja namna hii, alafu anapiga kura, mwisho nothing doing. No.
Ruto is expected to hold rallies at the Kondele Market in Kisumu before proceeding to Homa Bay and Migori counties over the next 2 days in his charm offensive of the Nyanza region. Laurel Tieno, Citizen TV.
It is no secret that next year's election, in terms of one of the key issues, it will be all about the economy. You've heard what Kalonzo Musyoka had to say, and Deputy President William Ruto. Let me take one more. ODM leader Raila Odinga yesterday said that there is need to review the taxation laws that affect small-scale businesses so as to allow them to grow whilst meeting their obligations. Now, during a meeting with a section of leaders and small-scale traders from the Ukambani region, Raila called on more women to seek elective positions and reiterated the need for their rights to be respected. Let's get a snapshot of what was said in that meeting from Elfas Lagat.
In a meeting with small-scale traders and sector leaders from Ukambani, ODM leader Raila Odinga reaffirmed his commitment to push for unity among Kenyans. Odinga saying he's still holding consultation before making his decision on whether to run for presidency, known by the 9th of December.
Mimi nauliza maswali ya Kenya, vile wanataka mambo yaendelee, vile wanataka mabadiliko kina gani wanataka. Mimi nauliza kwanza. Ndio mwezi ujao mimi niamue kama wanataka niendelee nisiniendelee. Unataka mzee aendelee asiendelee? Baba aendelee asiendelee?
Raila further calling for review of the current taxation regime to allow small-scale businesses to break even before having to pay their dues to the taxman.
Huyo ushuru inaua biashara zingine. Kama ushuru umewekwa juu sana, ili bidhaa ambazo zinatoka chini hawezi kunawiri. Mpaka ziwe pewe nafasi.
At the same time, Raila allies criticized Deputy President William Ruto's pledge of creating millions of jobs, saying his plan was not realistic.
Kuna wengine wanakimbia hapa mbele kama pace setters. Wanapima hali ya hewa hapa mbele. Sasa karibia unaona wametoka nje. Na mwenye rais ndio sasa anaingia. Si mumeona hiyo ikifanyika? Mimi naona hapa Kenya hiyo ndio inaendelea sasa hii. Kuna wengine wanakimbia pepe. Hawajui hapa kuna jamaa ambaye amejipanga.
Wenzetu wanasema atapatia Wakenya kazi vile Junet amesema milioni 4. Kama ungeweza kuwapatia milioni 1, sasa utapata uwezo wapi ya kuwapatia milioni 4?
The ODM leader further calling for the respect of women and the safeguarding of their rights, even as he challenged more women to seek elective positions in the forthcoming elections.
Bila kina mama kuna uhai katika taifa letu. Nataka kuona kama wakina mama wetu wanatembea kama wana majivuno kama Wakenya. Let them be respected.
Raila now says during the Nairobi meeting slated for the 9th of December, ODM party will announce the direction it will be taking for the 2022 poll. Elfas Lagat, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, it wasn't planned. Those were actually the discussions that presidential aspirants were having yesterday on the campaign trail. And my business-minded guests here in studio will help us just understand, not the politics, that's for a different show, but what might work, what might not work in regards to that. Joyce and Jogo, I actually want to start with you on this one. Depending on whoever will take over next year after the 2022 elections, as the manufacturing sector, what you are hearing generally, does it give you a sense of hope that that 15% target, depending on what is implemented, could become a reality? Or is there more that you want to hear to be convinced that, whatever they're promising will get us on the right track?
First, I want to say that I'm grateful to see that the thought process is around an inclusive economy, looking at inclusivity in the economic growth progress, and that's a good thing. We've had a theme around women empowerment and inclusion, knowing that at least world over we are at least 50 to 51% of the population. So it's only prudent that we imagine how can women also take up the same equal space in terms of decision making, and also being highest consumers. They decide so much on what is consumed in the world, in the economy, nurturing families. They're interested in protection of their families and growth. So that's a good agenda. There's SMEs that has come through without really saying who said it, but all of them seem to be interested in SME growth. Of course, for us, we already know there's many policies on women agenda. There are policies on MSMEs. The latest one, the MSC policy that is out, really a lot has been thought through. We're expecting them to see how they can implement that, put funds into in their budgeting process into how they support implementation of existing policies. These policies have been done with a lot of consultation. So really, there's nothing new being said about the plans ahead. They're there, they're well documented. We just want a very clear implementation plan that is well financed and institutions given the support to deliver on their mandate. The other thing that I've heard coming through, of course, is the sectors of the economy that they want to revamp, like agriculture. I think that's a good agenda. We have a strong agricultural strategy that was launched some 2-3 years ago. But then where is the impact? Who's measuring the results? And we know very well, like last year, we had a net import of agricultural produce from Uganda, a country like Uganda or even Tanzania. So really, we are not doing well in terms of agricultural output, not just for our own consumption, but also to get into agro-processing. So we have different value chains that are really getting extinct. You can see the cotton value chain is almost extinct. We have to import cotton. You know, we're importing too much raw materials from that agricultural sector. So I think that agenda is good. It just needs proper implementation strategies are there. That is one thing about Kenya that we are proud of but then how are they consolidated? Because there's a lot of duplication in some of these policies and different institutions doing similar things. So there's conflicts around who does what and who achieves what. So if there can be a bit of harmonization with the institutions, reducing duplication of efforts, and of course cutting down on the costs that are there, empowering these institutions to deliver. So we are hoping that they can also bring up accountability measures. How can they reduce things like corruption, wastage in public expenditure? Those conversations will be good for us to hear so that we are operating optimally with existing resources. And then how do we then attract innovations into the country and partnerships with different, I heard about trading with Europe, trading with Asia, trading in Africa. Those are opportunities for partnerships to whether invest or trade with each other. How do they grow those trade relations and economic diplomacies across the different regimes that are there for trading, whether it's the African continent or a free trade area? Negotiations ongoing with AGOA. How do we optimize? We only do about currently in the current AGOA strategy, only about 6,000 products out of so many products that we should be able to export, and it's very minimal. And the challenges is the competitiveness, cost competitiveness in terms of how we trade with the rest. The European markets, education, I haven't heard much about education, but there was a theme around youth. There's a very strong youth policy that was also launched with very good ideas and generally strategies on how to empower the youth.
We have launched policies around everything.
Yes, they are there actually.
Plans are there.
Let's implement them to the letter. Let's involve all stakeholders in this implementation.
Tell me one thing before I allow Ken to win. I can see him itching to share his thoughts on some of those promises made out there. You raised the question of how will we be able to monitor what whoever gets into office will have done to see whether they achieved that which they promised. So let's talk about realities. How do we monitor that person so-and-so said that they'll do this, and what sort of tools can we use? So if somebody promises that they'll take manufacturing to 15%, what does 15% manufacturing contribution to GDP look like in terms of jobs, for example? What does that look like? You know, we keep throwing those numbers out there, but reality, quote unquote, qua ground, for lack of a better word, what does that look like?
And that's why we're saying, let's first, one aspect is, can their manifestos be very clear with measurable terms, activities that, you know, not just open statements, which are good for political rallies and others, but on paper, how do we make sure that the strategies are very clear on roles and responsibilities, accountability measures, also numbers that we can track, and then maybe quarterly meetings on tracking progress, and then working backwards. And I like that. We've been asking ourselves, getting to 15%, what are those game changers? What are those things that we need that can just, you know, transform these numbers? And because we are going backwards as much as our ambitions are forward, something is not right. And without really belaboring on taxation issues, but other kind of incentives and innovations, technological advancements that we can bring in. And I must tell Joy that actually some industries are highly technological in terms of their systems and production systems. We have robots in Kenya now. There are some industries already using robotics. So really young people need to be told they can be as ambitious as they want. So if you're looking at youth policy, the existing youth policy implementation strategy.
At the end of the day.
Yes.
Let me allow Ken to weigh in. Ken, maybe I could even ask you specifics in regards to some of the promises. One, cut debt by 50%. Two, 24-hour economy, revamping of sugar, rice sector, change taxation policy, support for SMEs. First of all, is there anything new that you're hearing there? She said she hasn't heard anything new. There are policies out there that support a lot of the ideas that are being pledged out there on the campaign trail. Are you hearing anything new, groundbreaking, landmark?
I've not had anything new, and Wahiga should say that we have serious problems with our economy, and we will need serious ideas to fix the economy. One of the things the leaders should be honest with Kenyans is if we don't get it right next year, economy-wise, we might lose Kenya as we know it, not least because of our public debt. It's good that somebody has talked about public debt, but I don't think they have been a bit more rigorous in it. Far too much money is leaving this country. If you look at how much we are servicing debt to international creditors, if you look at how much money we are servicing to domestic creditors, almost 66% of our tax revenue, you know, that's money earned through blood, sweat, and tears, is going to foreigners. And because of that lack of money circulating in the local economy, we can't do business. We can't create jobs. We can't have, even if you have that 24-hour economy, nobody will be investing because you don't have enough cash in circulation. So I think a serious candidate really has to say in the first 100 days, we need to look at our public debt. We need to be able to, it might not be able to do it 50%, but we need to have like a 5-year strategy, at least have reduce it by 10% every year to be able to reduce it. What that will do, it will now reduce the amount of money leaving the country, getting out of circulation. So it starts circulating within the economy so Kenyans can transact and be able to create jobs. I like what you said about measuring progress because we've talked so much about GDP. We need now to move towards jobs creation. You know, in the United States, every first Friday of the month, they have to publish a jobs report. How many jobs were created in manufacturing? So it's not just about saying 15% of GDP. It's actually how many jobs are being created. So I think this, in the first 100 days, we need to have that conversation on moving our targets on economy towards jobs. Yes, let's monitor GDP, but jobs. But we won't be able to achieve any of the things that the leaders are saying if we don't fix our public debt, which if we are not honest with Kenyans, will really weigh us down.
Joy, and I know you have feedback that you might want to give, but let me throw in a question as well. Ken has spoken of any serious presidential aspirant should have a plan for how within the first 5 years of their term, because you don't know if you get re-elected, every year you should look at reducing public debt by 10%. But remember, as you campaign, so many promises have been made, promises that will require funding. So in addition, you find yourself in a catch-22 situation day one in office, because on one hand, you have debt that you need to reduce, maybe with that target of 10%, but you have promises that you made. And you're looking at a re-election campaign that you need to start working on almost as quickly as you get into office. How do you balance, how can you reduce public debt when you have so many promises that you need to deliver on? Help us get your views on that as an economist, even as you give your feedback to some of the pledges.
Sometimes I think we are giving this campaign trail too much seriousness. I think we are just letting a lot of Kenyans are being too serious on this. For me, I think I'm seeing a big problem. A big problem in that these guys are not talking to us coherently. To some of us, it's just gibberish. If you tell me about an economic model called bottom-up, from where I sit, a model is ideally backed up by concrete theory and foundations that enable us to start talking about its applicability in the real world.
Well, the economists, as part of the bottom-up team, who say they will be making that presentation soon, so maybe you haven't seen
I want to see that
paperwork.
I want to see that paperwork. And again, okay, fine. I give you the benefit of doubt. My next point, what is bottom-up? Mrs. Google is your friend. Ask him. Ask her. She knows everything. Ask your dictionary. Bottom up. It's about participatory approach in management or governance. Asking people What are your immediate challenges that constrain you most in terms of breaking away from poverty? In terms of becoming economically empowered? What can you do? What are your local resources, including local knowledge? And then from there, people start saying, oh, for us, the Kamba people, what we need is water and market access for our products. Things like that. Letting people tell you what it is that you want, that is bottom up. And in other words, goals are set from bottom up. They are shared from by the people upwards. And then now the management now takes it up and works at the best interests of the people in terms of this is what we want. That is bottom up. When you come and tell me that I have a strategy to increase investments in Mama Mboga's businesses, in the young people's entrepreneurship, in all the informal sector, I have a strategy to increase investments and financial resources directed towards empowering people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. That is top down, isn't it? You are top there. You've thought about the solution. Hey guys, I know what is troubling you. This is it. That is top down. Bottom up, I would have wanted to see a scenario whereby the DP has gone around the country trying to find out what is it that bothers wananchi. People say, oh, corruption. Oh, for us, we are business people. Our corruption cost in terms of running our businesses, as in the amount that you have to pay in terms of bribes to keep our businesses going, or to protect witch hunt from our businesses is too much. Please help us in terms of making it easier for us to run enterprises. The business community. You go to the Maasai people, they'll tell you that things about our land is all becoming brick and mortar, and our livelihoods and our lifestyles have not changed. Our biggest problem is the future of our existence as a people. What do we need to do? You go to the Kamba people, you walk around there talking about people, what is it that you want me to do for you when I become president? That is bottom up. Please talk to me in a language that I can understand, not gibberish.
Okay. Well, I mean, now that you specifically referenced him, his supporters say that part of the reason why he visits every region, for example, is to get that feedback. For example, in Western Kenya, what our reporter there reported in Nyanza is that a charter will be signed with leaders that these are your needs, and this is what now, a deal will be signed that should I become president, that is what will happen. But for me, generally, as you listen to every aspirant, and with few of them referring to debt, with few of them referring, I mean, corruption and debt do come up in those conversations. Do you feel that reforming the economy will be practically impossible in the short term with the baggage that the economy comes with for whoever will take over?
Maura, I told you, all these campaign promises, I cannot make sense of them. How do you cut debt 50%? How do you start with a social protection program of 6,000 if you're going to be inheriting an economy with such small fiscal space that a debt about 68, 70% of GDP debt ratio, of debt to GDP ratio? How are you going to be doing these things? We are talking about 35% of Kenyans below the poverty line. 35% of about 45 or so millions of people. How many people are that? For how long are you going to be giving this big social protection program? How, and for how long, and to who? I don't understand. I'm sorry. I can't make sense of this. It's just gibberish to me. I don't understand what these people are telling us.
Maybe an economy should buy. Okay, I don't know if any has announced yet, for that particular position. But nevertheless, Joyce, there is a feeling in which these are the kind of conversations we should be having. That in developed nations, it's the economy, the economy, the economy. Some say that hopefully in a couple of years, we finally will have the kind of politics that Kenyans have been hoping for. Do you get the sense as well as a business leader?
Yes, I must say the economy is important as much as we are looking at sustainability elements of how people can live well, but people can't live well without the space of a good economy. We are also looking at something may not have come up, but the environment and these climate change debates happening at COP26.
That's right.
One of the things around how we utilize natural resources and optimize them well, or generally all our resources. So economy is a strong element of resource management. And for businesses to thrive, the economy must thrive. And for the economy to thrive is these other things, elements that we are discussing that then drive the economy. And just listening to, the discussions, for instance, now we have a very wide fiscal deficit. And somebody, those promises are dangerous. So somebody needs to, as they promise, also articulate the steps they are going to take to achieve those particular targets. Just the same way we were saying about measurements. We are just coming from a COVID-19, depression or kind of stalemate, and we are looking for all strategies to recover. I had a mention of import substitution, which is a good strategy as well. There are a lot of discussions on how to boost local innovations, local manufacturing, so that some of the things we import we can produce locally and create jobs for the young people. And we at CAM, we're also trying to, invigorate some, to stimulate the economy by having some of our exhibitions where we are showcasing locally manufactured products, showcasing the innovations that are in industry, to just encourage Kenyans to also consume local products so that, the young people are encouraged to produce things that people can consume. And that we normally do through a festival we call Changamka. It will be happening at the end of this November, and people can reach out to me later for that. I must take that space to say that. But it's all about just encouraging the manufacturing sector to grow, giving hope to the sector. We are looking at elections. We've just come from the COVID. We are talking about our widening fiscal deficit. So really we are in a catch-22 where we are saying we have these three big problems. There are really three, coming from COVID, some industries are just trying to create new jobs.
And some shut down.
Yes, some shut down. And by the way, as they shut down, a lot of employees went and found other things to do. Getting back these employees, we are struggling. So there are some industries that don't have employees, actually, that are skilled. So again, developing skills quickly to take up the space with the growth that is coming in, because markets are opening, especially those in exports. The European markets have now opened. They have to be serviced again with the certain products and services. Staff had gone home. So replacing those skilled people is another task. So the growth of the education sector in terms of skills, upskilling people needs to be high. Technologies have changed. COVID has made us realize really we have to leapfrog how we use technology. So skills upgrade in those areas. So I would like to hear more from those, and they really don't have to worry. They just have to understand the existing policies that have been well thought out with a lot of stakeholder engagements. All we want is implementation, please. And then harmonization of existing policies. All these financial instruments that are contradicting each other, please, can they be harmonized and reduce any kind of duplication? As we harmonize locally, can they also harmonize in the region and in Africa, so that we are harmonizing these policies for us to improve on how we move people, how we move our goods. People also want to travel and go, not necessarily to go and work elsewhere, but also to just be able to engage, exchange, knowledge with the rest of the world.
You almost sound like you could write a manifesto for an aspirant. I'll be reading your tweets and your SMSs shortly, but I must allow Ken then to respond to this. And this is not a problem that just plagues public sector, private sector as well. Implementation. A new CEO takes over in a private, let's use private sector example, makes large promises to, to the board and to a company, but the implementation then is a completely different process. And also harmonization. We know of wastage and duplication, not just in the public sector, but in private sector as well. Why do you think these things are so difficult to thrash through, in the business world and maybe even in the political world as well?
That's a tough question, but I would say sometimes incentives tend to be misaligned. What the incoming CEO's intentions and the board sometimes can be different. I think from a country's perspective, you look at devolution, for example, look at agriculture. We spend more money at the national level in agriculture, despite it being a devolved function. And that just speaks to sometimes interests and how interests are aligned. So I think, to your question, I think it just needs a group of people who think through these issues. I think often the politicians are very keen on capturing power. But I think sometimes...
At all costs.
At all costs, right. But, yes. And sometimes they don't think through some of maybe the contradictions which Joy has talked about in terms of, you've spent you've said so many promises, which means you might have to increase your taxes. But also you've talked about reducing, and you could see that actually in the OCA, for example, where you have one candidate speaking about reducing public debt, and one candidate talking of spending more. So there's that sense of contradiction. So I think it just requires a bit more investment in economic thinking, and I think it's important to also define to Kenyans what is an economic model. That word is used everywhere, and I keep saying a good economic model has to speak to the factors of production, which is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So you need to have 4 chapters in your economic model. You need to ask about land. We have a lot of unutilized land in Kenya. If you drive across the country, we have a lot of idle land, yet we are the same country that imports so much food. If you look at labor, still we have a lot of high unemployment, with our labor force. Capital, the cost of capital, it's very high. Interest rates in this country are still they're still very high in terms of facilitating a business environment. Then the entrepreneur, he's still really on the fringes of the society. He's not really at the mainstream. If you look at the Israels or the US, it's the entrepreneur who's at the heart of the economic model. In Kenya, it's more of, it's something you're trying. That's why you meet people to say, I'm trying business. It's something that it's on the fringe.
Business. People just try.
Right. So we need to put the entrepreneur, what Joseph Schumpeter talked about, the Schumpeterian entrepreneur, somebody who imagines, creates, innovates, and creates jobs. If you think of an innovation like Uber, one idea, but it's creating thousands of driver jobs. M-Pesa, for example, it's enabling so many people. So I think a model that speaks to innovation, I think can really get us out of the difficulties we are in.
That is a very interesting point that you've raised there, Ken, and then I'll allow Joy to weigh in on this. But let's hear what our viewers have to say this morning. 22422 is the SMS line, #Daybreak. My goodness, the economy, the economy, the economy. You feel it in your pocket. These are your tweets and your SMSs. Agumba Steve says, year in, year out, every other aspirant has... okay, this I think is a political question. That one we'll discuss when we are discussing politics. Let's go to another one, please. Okay, Basimwa, you say the taxation in Kenya is not to be blamed on KRA. It's a whole system from Parliament that approved the budget and other stakeholders who put the high targets for KRA. KRA, therefore, does not have any choice but to look for ways to reach that target. Okay. Dystopian 2022, you say corruption is one reason we have higher taxes. Seal the loopholes and the government may not need some loans. All right. Njengawa Kongo, you say the lack of a good tax framework is a clear indication of the kind of failed institutional leadership. The taxman must be well audited to ascertain its capability to bring in place the right framework that creates a conducive atmosphere for Kenyans. All right, Engineer Lazaro, you say Kenya needs to change from heavily relying on tax as their source of income. More than 50 years after independence, we should be focusing on encouraging entrepreneurship and export, not being chief consumers, as is the trend right now. All right, Evan Simi, you say the economy of Kenya can grow if corruption can be stopped in all sectors, KRA, KEBS, industries like various sugar companies, county governments, national governments. Kenya should get civic education of economy from developed countries like Japan, Sweden, Germany, Belgium, China. Okay, Evans, those are your views. All right, are those the... Okay, those are the ones that we have at the moment. Thank you. And I'll be reading your SMSs as well as soon as I'm able to pull some of them up. Joy, even as we begin to wind down this discussion, entrepreneurs, putting them at the center. Export, making sure that we move to become chief exporting economy as opposed to importing as well. How important are those two factors?
Extremely important.
That's a game changer.
It's extremely, extremely important. And all these things which are being said, actually, like somebody said, that is my colleague said, that these are not new things. We want these aspirants to tell us what is it that they're going to do differently to make sure that a lot of time you put entrepreneurs at the center. If you've heard the youth fund, the women fund, the credit guarantee schemes, we've heard all these things, and yet we're still talking about the same problems. We want to understand how shall we do things differently this time to ensure that these game changers become exactly what they are to be to the lives of many Kenyans, game changers. You talked about entrepreneurship. In Kenya, you know that about 83% of all those employed are in these informal small-scale enterprises. And it's just a way of coping with a difficult situation. Tell me, how do you ever get rich when you're just selling groundnuts and your whole stock is less than 50 shillings? How do you even, I mean, it's less than 500 shillings, your whole stock of that groundnuts, whatever. Yet you're counted among the entrepreneurs in Kenya. Are you even able to live above the poverty line? Are you even able to provide for your children's needs, school fees, education, and all that, school fees and healthcare and all that? So if we talk about entrepreneurship, I don't like the idea of wanting to turn every Kenyan into an entrepreneur. Let Kenyans decide. For those who want to be entrepreneurs, go to it and be entrepreneur and create products or innovate products that really make a difference in their lives and that really help them live above the poverty line. And other Kenyans can do different things. We should not be entrepreneurs just because you have no choice. That is the last resort to cope with our bad situation. And that is something that I'm really seeing the danger of these promises pushing us into. You cannot come up with a promise that you want many people to go into entrepreneurship and sell to who? If we are all producing Jugu Karangas, if we are all... So in other words, we need opportunity and choices in terms of livelihoods, diversification of livelihoods, and of course, employment creation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because our time is almost up, I'm going to give each of my panelists about a minute. If you were to have a roundtable with the current crop of presidential aspirants, what's that one thing that you tell them really needs to be the focus if you want to change the direction of the country's economy? Joyce, I think let me start with you. That one. Was that one or two things? Your parting shot.
I'll just repeat again. In terms of one of the things they need to work on is a conducive business environment. Since they're looking at the economy as a major focus, they need to do a deep dive on the business environment, both at county and national level. They have so many economic stimuli across all those areas. Can they analyze all that and then see how measure the impact so far? How is it doing? And all the reports are there actually. They've been shared. Like at CAM, we're always sharing the impact of taxation. We are sharing impact of different policies, whether it's trade, investment, whether it's just education. We are always sharing impact from our sector through engagement with industries. So they need to then align those and strengthen institutions, both at county level and national level, not just the ministries, but also the government agencies, to be able to deliver on their mandate. And streamline. You've heard the people saying about corruption. We are aware corruption is quite expensive. Just driving ethics and business integrity into government and how they spend that money. And then from there, after they analyze the whole policy framework and legislative framework, the second area now for me is just the issue of innovation. Yes, I know she said not everybody can be an entrepreneur, but no business owner wants to employ people who are not entrepreneurship in their thinking. They are not entrepreneurial in their thinking, because really, who is developing new products? Most of the time, it's not really even, okay, the owner comes with the idea, starts with the initial product, but when you're looking at diversification, growth, you need people. These people must be entrepreneurial in their thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, they must really be entrepreneurial. Whether you're employed or you're the employer, we all must be really entrepreneurial in our thinking and think about how to sustain businesses, how to innovate, how to grow. And it's just analyzing local problems and coming up with solutions that local people need. We know that some strategies, we are an export-led manufacturing. We are looking at, you can't grow manufacturing if you don't widen the market. So if I'm just selling to 20 people, I'll never really grow because there's no need. But if I know I have 1.2 billion people in Africa, I have I don't know how many billions in China, I have billions in Asia to target, why not? I'll invest heavily, and if the policy and taxation regimes across are good, why not? You will expand and create jobs while you're at it.
Okay.
Yes, and we know they should focus heavily on manufacturing, I must say. If we are talking job creation, jobs that are sustainable and productive, manufacturing sector is a priority. It's a priority. Thank you.
Ken, what's your one word? If you had a round table with them, what would you tell them is the game changer?
I would think the first 100 days, we need to really address public debt, because that is what is fixing that will unlock opportunities in every sector of the economy. If in the first 100 days we can agree that we need to cut on our debt, we need to stop the hemorrhaging of funds, leaving this country, leaving the economy, now that can give us an opportunity to do the things we want to do. The second thing I would say, we look at our largest factor of production, which is land. You know, are we doing proper utilization of land? Are we applying the latest technology? You know, things like blockchain can be applied to our land management to make it secure, to make it efficient. So the second part would be on innovation.
Okay, thank you for that. And you thought about this, and Joy, finally?
Yes, if you talk about Kenya today, our biggest problems, we know them. There's debt. I would want them to tell us about, I'd like to hear about how they're going to, their debt management strategy if they become president, and also their fiscal management, that is the revenue mobilization and expenditure strategy. And I'd like to see how that revenue mobilization and expenditure speak to the debt management strategy, because there has to be an alignment there. I'm very keen to hear a convincing discourse around that. Also, unemployment and poverty. You see, because of those two, then education, we have made a lot of strides, progress in terms of making education affordable, but it is still not affordable to a lot of Kenyans. There's still a lot of levies and a lot of charges and a lot of requirements like school fees and things like that. So, but that can be addressed through fighting poverty and unemployment, and of course, making education much more affordable by at least letting parents not pay so much in terms of these other levies.
Okay, thank you for that. What can I say? I wish we had more time, but our time is up. Let me thank each of my guests. Joy Kiru, who's an economist and lecturer at UON. We've had Joyce Jogu, Head of Consulting and Business Development at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and Ken Gishinga, Chief Economist, Mentoria Economics. You've gotten a sense of their wish list to the presidential aspirants who are currently moving around the country, telling you what they will do should you elect one of them, whoever you will choose to be the next occupant of State House. But what's your wish list as well? Let us know. Let's keep the conversation happening online. 22422 is our SMS line. Hashtag is Daybreak. It's all about the economy next year, it seems, and we'll keep having conversations like this just to get an understanding of what should be the factors that Kenyans are focusing on as they listen to various promises. Thank you for having tuned in. We're not just done just yet with the program, however. We take a short break. When we come back, after exercising our minds with this discussion around the economy, it's time to exercise the body. And Willis Raburu with Alvin will be helping you to do that. So keep it Citizen TV. We'll be right back.